Ryu snapped Kim In-hong's neck with a cold, remorseless expression, causing him to die within seconds. Ryu stared at his lifeless body with eyes full of hatred. My age 30's eyes filled with fear and confusion. He couldn't believe what Ryu had just done. His hands began to tremble as he took several steps back. He placed his hands on his head and lost control, unable to stop himself from laughing like a maniac upon seeing that Ryu had killed Black Scythe. To him, our boy was completely insane. Ryu's eyes began to glow. He turned around and, with an arrogant expression, made it clear that the fool Black Scythe was extremely annoying. My age 30 started to feel fear unlike anything he had ever experienced before. To him, Ryu's eyes looked like those of a beast. The atmosphere was different from before, and he had no idea how this change had happened. Now that the fake Black Scythe was dead, the system activated. Ryu had committed murder while pretending to be another player, fulfilling the activation conditions and thus revealing the hidden rune known as the cloning rune at their current location. A golden energy appeared around Ryu. He gazed at the ground with a calm expression, pretending to be little cockle had been worth it for him. My age 30, clearly upset, approached Ryu and asked why he had killed Black Scythe. Ryu reached into his hoodie, and as he pulled something out, he asked if my age 30 really wanted to know the reason. Ryu took out a white mask, put it on, and as his eyes began to glow, he revealed that Kim In-hong was a complete idiot who had been stealing his identity. My age 30 felt even more afraid, his mind filled with confusion because he didn't understand what Ryu meant by this. After putting on the mask, Ryu started walking toward the cafe owner, who was unconscious on the floor. My age 30 was upset. He started pointing at the woman's body and, with an angry expression, explained that Ryu should have killed this woman instead of Black Scythe. Ryu approached the woman, crouched down, and while picking up a trash bag from the ground, he responded that Black Scythe was trash, just like my age 30. Then, carefully, he placed the trash bag over the woman's head. My age 30 clenched his fist and, with a furious gaze, demanded to know what Ryu had just said, daring him to repeat it. After putting the trash bag over the cafe owner's head, Ryu stood up without saying a single word. My age 30's eyes began to shine with hatred as he drew his weapon, causing a powerful golden sword to appear in his hand. Seeing this, Ryu reached out and started summoning his weapon, making a dark energy take shape and transform into it. My age 30's attention was fixed on it, leaving him somewhat confused and surprised. Ryu unsheathed his scythe, turned toward him, and with a piercing gaze, repeated once again that my age 30 and Kim In-hong were trash. My age 30 swallowed hard, and his eyes widened in fear. He started sweating when he saw that Ryu's main weapon was a scythe. He had never seen a player wield such a large scythe before. Ryu, resting the scythe on his shoulder, silently observed him. My age 30's jaw dropped, and his eyes grew even wider with terror as he remembered that there was only one player who used a massive scythe as their primary weapon. He recalled that Ryu had previously mentioned Kim In-hong was stealing his identity. As he struggled to make sense of the situation, Ryu caught his attention and asked if he now understood what was happening, and if he knew who the real Black Scythe was. My age 30 started trembling with fear, took several steps back, and finally realized that Ryu was the real Black Scythe. With a sincere expression, Ryu apologized for lying. Due to fear, my age 30's hands began to shake, causing him to drop his weapon as he understood that Ryu was never little cockle. He was the true Black Scythe. His body shaking and his face filled with terror, he knelt before Ryu, apologizing for not recognizing him earlier and begging for mercy. Coldly, Ryu refused. With tears in his eyes, my age 30 lifted his head, and before he could even react, Ryu slashed his throat. His head bounced to the side until it landed at Fatty's feet. A desperate smile appeared on my age 30's face. Fatty's attention was fixed on it, and he couldn't help but feel fear and disgust. Ryu began spinning his scythe while staring intently at Fatty. Sweat poured down Fatty's face as he clenched his teeth, his eyes widening in terror. He realized that Ryu was the real Black Scythe and that he was on a completely different level from them. Ryu had been so fast that Fatty hadn't even seen him swing his scythe. Ryu pointed his scythe at Fatty, making it clear that only the two of them remained now. With a cold gaze, he decided to give Fatty time to say any last words, if he had any. Fatty clenched his fists, and his whole body started trembling. He wasn't going to say something as obvious as begging for his life, but there was something he wanted to ask if he ever got the chance. Ryu began observing him closely and quickly realized that Fatty wanted to know why he had killed him 5 times in the 4th round. Fatty's eyes widened in surprise because this was exactly what he had wanted to ask Ryu. With a serious tone, Ryu said the reason was simple. He saw Fatty as his rival. Hearing this, Fatty's mind filled with confusion, and he asked, "Why me?" Ryu's eyes shone with sincerity as he explained that Fatty seemed to be the most skilled among everyone there. He had to eliminate any potential rivals. Fatty stood frozen, silently watching Ryu. Our boy asked if there was anything else he wanted to ask him. Fatty said nothing, and Ryu then asked if he was ready to die. But just then, Fatty asked if he could ask one last question. Ryu gave him permission, and Fatty asked why he was going to kill him. With a gaze full of hatred, Ryu replied that Fatty was just a piece of trash like the others because he had also come to kill that woman. Fatty placed his hand on his chest and, while gasping heavily, said that he had nothing to do with it since he hadn't done anything yet. Ryu lowered his scythe and stood in silence for several minutes, deep in thought. He believed that Fatty hadn't done anything wrong, so he decided to give him a chance. Upon hearing this, Fatty's eyes filled with joy, and a smile appeared on his face. Ryu gently tapped the ground with the tip of his scythe, then turned to Fatty with a serious expression and said that in exchange, Fatty had to give him everything he owned. Following Ryu's order, Fatty placed all his player belongings on the ground, including his axe, bow, clothes, potions, and runes. Everything was quite useful. Ryu's eyes widened with excitement because by selling all these items at the shop, he could earn around 2,000 gold coins. Fatty started touching his head and, with a sincere look, said that this was all he had, swearing he had nothing else. Ryu crouched down and first picked up the 2 runes, saying that he didn't doubt him. Fatty placed his hands on his stomach and asked if Ryu wasn't going to take anything else. Ryu stored the runes in the system's inventory and explained that since he had no use for the other items, Fatty could keep them. Upon hearing this, Fatty thanked him. Without hesitating for a second, he began collecting the remaining items while Ryu watched him silently. The truth was that Ryu couldn't even sell those things in the shop. Fatty stored all his belongings in the system's inventory, then turned to Ryu with a nervous expression and asked if Ryu was really going to let him live as he had promised. Ryu nodded, saying that a promise was a promise. Hearing this, Fatty was shocked and began bowing his head to Ryu, sincerely thanking him from the bottom of his heart. Ryu started getting tired and told him to stop since he was overdoing it. He kicked my age 30's corpse and told Fatty to behave from now on. Then, he gave him permission to do whatever he wanted with the bodies. Ryu crouched beside the woman's body and, with a serious expression, decided to take her with him. He lifted her onto his shoulders and began walking toward the exit. Fatty, wanting to be helpful, offered to assist him, but Ryu refused since he didn't trust him and ordered him to leave. As Ryu slowly carried the woman's body toward the exit, Fatty watched in silence. He let out a sigh and wiped his chin. He had barely survived. He truly thought he was going to die and never expected Ryu to give him a chance. He had lost some belongings, but that was nothing compared to being spared. Fatty's eyes filled with hatred, and he began to feel a strange sensation. He clenched his fists, gritted his teeth, and stared furiously, unsure if he had really done anything wrong or if it was even worth taking his belongings just because he was a bystander. He couldn't help but feel angry, thinking that this wasn't fair. Meanwhile, Ryu was slowly leading the woman toward the exit, and Fatty's gaze locked onto them. He realized that Ryu was vulnerable now and thought that he would die from a stab in the back. Fatty's eyes filled with questions, and he started sweating, unsure of what to do. His stats would increase significantly if he killed someone as high level as him. He began sweating profusely, his eyes widening as he saw a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that would never come again. He drew his axe and gripped it tightly, knowing he would regret it if he let this chance slip away. Silently, he began walking toward Ryu, praying that he wouldn't notice. Ryu remained unaware as Fatty slowly closed the distance between them. Once he got close, Fatty decided to attack. He raised his axe and, with a furious glare, prepared to strike, calling him a piece of trash. Before Ryu could react, Fatty attacked him from behind, striking the back of his neck. In an instant, Ryu collapsed to the ground. Fatty's eyes widened with joy as a smile appeared on his face. He couldn't believe he had killed Black Scythe so easily. He couldn't help but laugh like a madman, mocking Ryu for dying at the hands of a level 10 player. With a wicked smile, he started kicking Ryu's corpse, calling him an idiot for turning his back on his enemies. To him, having a high level was useless if someone was that stupid. Clenching his fist and with an arrogant expression, he thanked the loser Ryu for the stats. But then, Fatty waited in silence and nothing happened. He became confused because he should have received a notification that his stacks had increased. Fear spread across Fatty's face, making him sweat as he realized he had no idea what was going on. Ryu appeared behind him and, with a deadly glare, asked what Fatty thought was happening. The moment he heard Ryu's voice, Fatty's expression changed, his arrogant smile vanished, and terror took over as he realized he had messed up.